गुड आफ्टरनून टू एवरीवन। बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है इस चर्चा में, क्योंकि जिस देश की हम बात कर रहे हैं और जिस सिविलाइजेशन का यहाँ चर्चा हो रही है, उसके गौरवशाली इतिहास को जिस तरह से दबाया गया, और अभी जैसे हमने तेलंगाना का एक एग्जाम्पल देखा, स्टेट ऑफ हैदराबाद का देखा, और पिछले 2 दिन में जिस तरह से अलग अलग मुद्दों पर चर्चा हुई, आई थिंक इट्स एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट कि हमें अपने इतिहास को पहचानना है। और जहाँ तक बात आती है, अभी तक हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे मुद्दे ऐसे देखे जो हम लोगों के लिए बहुत इमोशनल हैं, रिलीजियस हैं, सेंटिमेंटल हैं। लेकिन कोई भी समाज, कोई भी सिविलाइजेशन सिर्फ इमोशन से नहीं बनता है। इमोशन एक एस्पेक्ट है, लेकिन उसकी प्रोग्रेस, उसकी डेवलपमेंट के लिए, उसकी प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए, उसके सिटीजन्स और सब्जेक्ट्स की प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए और बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, जिसमें हम इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी को इंक्लूड करते हैं, एजुकेशन को करते हैं, उनकी सिक्योरिटी को, इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल सिक्योरिटी, एंड ओवरऑल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ wherever they stay. So overall civilization, yes, emotions and religion can be an emotional connect, but there are a lot of physical and mental infrastructure which is required. In this panel, I'm extremely honored that we have some of the best, I will say that intellectuals, those who are going to share thoughts on this issue. We all know that India was almost 30% of global GDP. We had some of the best art and culture and scientific developments. Very often we see that people talk about architectural development, people talk about science and technology, people talk about astrology, all the modern sciences. And if you document those historical facts, the fact is that we were far advanced. I was just to quote a thought before I move into the panel, I was reading a book of Dr. Shri RVS here on mathematics and astronomy of ancient India. And the comparison between supercomputer calculation and our ancient calculation, actually the deviation comes in almost 7th or 8th decimal. Now this is amazing, like how without supercomputers, people were able to do, today we talk about telescope, satellite and Hubble telescope and everything to understand, and otherwise people were sitting on the earth without so-called all jargons and so-called advancements of modern era and able to predict. I think this was something amazing. I think more we deep down into it, we will see that very interesting things will happen. Second, another area, because those who are talking, sitting in IIT Delhi, one of the most foremost technical institution in the country, most of the intellectual properties, or I will say that innovations happened in the Western world only after when Britishers invaded India. Why? Why they were not able to do before that? Was this piracy? Just they were translating or picking up the Sanskrit slokas and printing in English with some new names. I think IIT and organizations like this should also investigate that why suddenly innovation happened only when Britishers invaded India and after that. From where they were getting the insight about knowledge and then documenting and claiming as patents and innovations in their name. So there are many things which one has to look at it. Now, before I move into, and all 4 panelists have a very different theme to look at it. And I'm sure whatever they will say will be only, I will not even say tip of the iceberg, but it will, I'll say, the introduction of the subject. Because every subject has a very detailed, if you go into every aspect, there's amazing things to learn. So we will start, and we will have, how much time we have? Organizers? Whole thing for 1 hour. So I think we should restrict each speaker maximum 10 minutes, so that if there is any concluding remark, we can look at it. So before I move into this one most important activity, and I always say that even in Jaipur Dialogue, we were there last week, we all talk about the the power of society. Whether we like it or not, the economic activity, the money power, is one of the most important catalysts in development of society. And whichever country actually had a money power was able to retain strong military, were able to invest in R&D, were able to invest in education, they were able to create religious and social infrastructure. Without money, you just cannot do it. Now, this is what is important here. So, I have honor to invite Mr. Prosenjeet. He is incidentally ICICI Security, looking at economic aspect of it. Mr. Sanyal is not there, unfortunately, but I'm sure Mr. Prosenjeet will be able to fill that gap. Prosenjeet, today we are talking about growing India post 47, and we are talking of Amrit Kal, and we want to become once again retain our or regain our past glory. How to build that? What should be done both by administration as well as citizens? We can't leave anything and everything to the government. We also have to play an active role. I want for next 7-8 minutes, if you can share your thoughts, how India can become an economic power. You are dealing with all the investors around the world, evaluating all the technologies and investment options there. Incidentally, I'm also advisor to SEBI, so I understand the challenges which you are facing. So we have to look at, and over to you. Do share that how for the next 25 years, we know the history, we all have experience through that. What should be done by Indian system, Indian policymakers to go back to the glory of economic superpower?
Thank you so much. Just to recall a little bit, as we all know now, for most of history, India was the world's largest economy. From the year of Christ's birth, at that point, India accounted for nearly a third of world GDP. In 1700, India still accounted for 24% of world GDP. Since then, it's been a precipitous decline. And the bottom, the trough, was not hit in 1950 or 1947, but in 1980. We reached 3% of world GDP at that point. Since then, we have climbed back to about 4.7% of world GDP now. So we are very far from being a Vishwaguru when it comes to the economy. So how does one achieve at least proper middle income status? We are still, I would say, India is considered a low middle income country. As late as 1990, we were among the 10 poorest countries in the world. So we have progressed from being among the 10 poorest countries to being a low middle income country. But where India has really failed as an economy is in generating labor intensive manufacturing. First, if you look at the history of all countries that have industrialized, starting with the Industrial Revolution in Britain, they started with producing clothes, shoes, toys, processed food, all labor-intensive products, which employ millions of people. So starting with Britain, then Germany and the United States in the 1860s and 70s onwards, Japan thereafter, the so-called Asian tigers in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, then China. They've all done this. They have employed millions and millions of people in labor-intensive manufacturing. India is actually quite an industrialized country now. We are the world's second biggest producer of steel, aluminium, cement. We are among the top 5 producers of refined petroleum, chemicals, cars, automobiles. But where we have failed is in producing. Now, if you look back to history, through most of history, even the time when Megasthenes visited India, at the time of Alexander the Great and Chandragupta Maurya, even at that time, India was the clothier to the world. And India certainly was the clothier to the world when the Dutch and the British came to trade in our seas. And there's a word called freebooter. Freebooter is actually a Dutch word. the word is Vrijbuiten. The Vrijbuiten were Dutch people who would jump onto Indian trading ships. You know, India's trading ships used to travel east and west from peninsular India, carrying Indian textiles particularly, and the freebooters would jump on, capture them, and then sell them at 10 times the price in Europe. So that is how the Dutch and then the English and so on became wealthy, by exploiting our ability to produce clothes. But now India is no longer the... For the first time in history, really since 1950, since the Nehruvian policies emerged, we stopped being the clothier to the world. And part of the reason is that we have really bad labor laws that apply to only a small proportion of the population. The small proportion are the so-called organized sector. They have royal treatment, effectively, but 90% of the workers in India have no protections at all, no insurance, no provident fund, etc. And we basically need to create a labor market that is fairer for a larger number. And that is essential. Now, interestingly, this government has taken steps to reform the labor laws, and if those labor laws get properly implemented across the country, then we have the chance to see an explosion of employment in labor-intensive manufacturing, which is an essential first step to creating a universal, basic level of prosperity that enables countries to become developed. There's no secret to this. Somehow we in India have missed the boat. We've done many other things right, but we have missed this basic aspect. And of course, as Shri Arif Muhammad Khan so rightly pointed out, we have a tremendous history of knowledge as well. When during the Gupta and Pala periods, we had Nalanda, Vikramshila, of course before that Shila, Jagat, all these great universities. At one time, I'd say in the 8th and 9th century of the Christian, the Ivy League of the world was in Eastern India. There were people coming from what is today Indonesia, Shri Vijay. There was a Shri Vijay college in Nalanda that had 200 to 300 students from Shri Vijay all times, endowed by the Emperor of Shri Vijay in what is now Indonesia, Sumatra. So that was our knowledge legacy. But unfortunately, by 1990, half our people were so illiterate that they couldn't read or write in anything, and of course, leave alone numeracy, they had no literacy. And India introduced universal and compulsory primary education only in 2001. This is an absolute shame. So we still have, as a consequence, we still have a problem of an entire generation of poor people who are illiterate and non-numerate. So that has to be overcome. Now, I think where we are still falling short, even under the current government, we are falling short in imparting basic education at a basic level to our people. We now have a cohort, for the last 20 years, a sufficient cohort of people who have basic literacy and numeracy. But the quality of education across the country remains poor. Now, I don't want to get into too much of the detail of the past, but when the British did a survey in Madras presidency in the 1820s, even at that time, they concluded that India in the 1820s had higher literacy than Britain did at the time. So, British legacy, of course, was really destructive of many things. Prior to that, we had, of course, the destruction of Nalanda. All of these things have happened in the past. But what we now need is the basic vision to impart universalized education and universalized employment in order to generate universal prosperity of a basic level, which I think is essential to achieving anything else. Now, we can have a wish list of many other things. Many other things India is already quite good at. India is good at producing engineers from institutions like this. India is quite good at most kinds of industries I've talked about as well. And now it is important also to marry the industrial prowess that we have to the educational prowess of institutions like this to generate high quality technology-based industries such as electronics. So this government is beginning to focus on that. But these are not things that you achieve automatically. They take time, and the first steps are being taken now, but it'll be a while before we actually achieve success in electronics manufacturing. So the point about this is India is very good at services. India has done remarkably well with most of the services, and the reason why I think we've done well is because the government has got out of the way. So if you think about aviation, the entire content space in televisions, all of that are areas where the government got out of the way, or government didn't know how to get in the way, and India saw remarkable progress. Software, most was essentially India taking advantage of its inherent comparative advantage and becoming successful. So, services is an area of enormous strength for India. We can continue to build, but in order to complete the economy, for a large nation like ours, we need to have a much more broad-based industrial base. And of course, once we achieve that, people will move out of agriculture and move into the millions and millions of jobs that will be created in industry. And automatically, agriculture productivity will rise because the marginal productivity of many agricultural workers is near zero at the moment. You need to move them. If you can move 300 million people from agriculture to industry over the next 20 years, then we'll truly be prosperous by 2047 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So we are talking about New India, where education and economy will definitely play a very, very vital role. And one very important terminology which we look at and where we are focusing now, that India should innovate. And I think when we are talking of intellectual property, it is an ideal combination of education and economics. Because unless we have commercialized innovations and the way challenges India is facing, even in today's society, so I think economy and education has to come together. Because very often we think about education and say we are not commercial. And the trading community says this is all bookish, we are not interested in education. We are practical people. So I think unless we marry education and economics, unless we focus on creating knowledge-based wealth creation activity, we will not be able to bring prosperity. We can continue to do a labor job. I will continue to get a daily wages. But are we looking for daily wages? Are we looking for minimum wage act? Or are we looking for prosperity? So I think that is where the education plus economics must combine. Either or will only create us laborers. So that is one way to look at it. But when we are talking of future of India, it's very, very important that whether citizens, people, those who are investing in India, those who are looking at India towards as an opportunity or land of opportunity, the most important aspect we look at is security. Without peacefulness, without security, think of a live example. We're talking about Northeast. Why there was no much investments going there? Why people were not going into J&K? Because I had a lot of experience of working in disturbed areas. And one of the reasons, there's a huge potential. It's not that they are resource poor locations. They are very, very rich locations. But the investors were not going there. The people, those who are not willing to go, how they will invest? So first thing for an investor is they visit personally first and then they put money there. It means security is very, very important. Now, to discuss this issue and how we can build that ecosystem so that India can become a prosperous nation going forward. Now, I will request Professor Mani here. For us, whoever gives knowledge is a professor, isn't it? So this is over to you. Share your thoughts on internal security.
Respected people on the podium. In fact, Mr. Sardana ji, I have taken knowledge here more than what I am going to give. So, for that, I am a gainer by coming to this place. Especially, I am a practicing Yajurvedi, and I was very happy to have received from Mr. Sitaram ji his book on Aruna Prashna. A beautiful book which gives a total treatise and integrating it into the quantum mechanics and other science of Sanatana. Sanatana Dharma itself is the mother of all sciences, and all the scientific theories of Western world have come from there. So I begin with the very starting, which is the driver of Sanatana is Shankara, Shankaroti iti Shankara. And this is the framework in which I will explain to you the internal security challenges. They are not problems, they are challenges. And Shankaroti means a welfare doer, the welfare of the lowest, Antayodaya, and also Samasya Krita hai. Samasya Karoti, matlab, do it the right way. Both it is covered under the Shankaroti iti Shankara hai. So that is the reason the Shivalinga, which is the driver of this, has been the opening slide. Challenges comprises of, you can classify it as crimes in the society which are organic, which have been happening since time immemorial, and over and over because of man's greed and deprivation and all that. Law and order issues are there, and certain manifested man-made challenges like terrorism, communal harmony, mischief from enemy nations, vested interest-sponsored crimes, etc., etc. These are all there. And I have divided the Indian challenges into basically geographical, legacy, international sponsored, ideological. I'm trying to run through them. So I feel if you need any clarification, kindly interrupt me because of the time constraint. I'm trying to run through them. Ideological and political. So now geographical, we all know that there are 4 geographies. One is the Kashmir. One is the Northeast. Somebody had spoken about it. In fact, Sardana himself said that he had worked in there. There are hesitancy of investments. All things have changed a lot. I don't know about Kashmir, but Northeast, there have been very, very path-breaking changes which have happened. Courtesy Mr. Jitendra Singh, I have congratulated him 2 days back in a seminar. Hinterland and left-wing extremist state. I am not calling it a Naxalism because it is all ideological driven. Left-wing extremism is a particular. Their agenda one time 20 years back was Pashupati se Tirupati tak, and they started through the People's War Group in Telangana area now, which spread to Chhattisgarh, and that was at one point of time 14 states, around 400 districts were affected by that. But now a lot of things have come under control thanks to certain bright officers. Somebody from the Andhra Pradesh cadre of IPS who led the Operation Greyhound, eradicated. From there, then there have been very good officers. It is basically officer driven. After 2014, of course, the political leadership is more proactive. Prior to that, it was officers driven. So I would like to keep it like that. We have some very dedicated officers who have delivered on this. I have classified the reasons of these geographical sectors in different ways. See, Article 30, the legacy was Article 370, about which I have written several essays about the demystification. Ultimately, it happened, it was abrogated, and but still there are certain, what are the present statuses, articles having been abrogated, there are political meddling, domestic and international, there are certain vested interests, including contractors and certain old political leaders who had made money under the Article 317 and all. Now they are being deprived, and that is the reason they are doing like that. I still believe that government should go in for a muscular, transparent and indifferent to non-stakeholders approach, attack the political stakeholders who have have fallen into the habit of making money under the Article 370, which now they are trying to create trouble and mischief. The two or three major political parties of ex-CMs and all, we all know that, it's well known that. Then human rights bogies like the one who has been given yesterday protection by the Supreme Court himself, in spite of being declared that he is an ISA agent by the Solicitor General. There are many such human rights lobbies who have been, including the UN Human Rights Office Commission of 2018 was absolute falsehood, peddling a Pakistani agenda is very well known. The text I have written, I have rebutted it. There is a book called Money Rights, in that essay is also there. And they are still active. At that time it was very, very interesting, especially their concerns about the AFPSA. When the security officer fights against a terrorist, he needs to be protected by a law, a sort of a shield has to be given to them, and that is what is hurting the terrorists and the separatists, and that is still happening. The UN Rights Commission also had treated it as a human rights violation, but I have the one who had countered it. The essay is available in the book called Pakistan is a very good lobbying state, PSYOPs, lobbying, etc. They do it much better than what, including Indian media, they are able to penetrate, recruit people, plant their version of the story to the inimical to the interest of the Indian security concerns. So this is what the narratives are said. And they are still aggressive, and posturing has become more aggressive after 370 abrogation. Not just diplomatic effort, we need to counter them either through the government's muscular PSYOPs. We should also get into information war, dissemination of information rapidly, fast, and so that this disaffection. Development till 2014 or even 2016-17, the development was lopsided. I will give you an example that till 2012 annual plan of the Jammu and Kashmir presented in the Niti Aayog Planning Commission was 95% investment into Kashmir area, which was siphoned by the terrorists and separatists, 3 to 4% in Jammu area, and then 1 or 2% to Ladakh area. Ladakh has been addressed, but the format is still continuing. This is what the position of Kashmir. On Kashmir problem, infiltration was uncontrollable till 2019. We have made gains, but Pakistan's mischief is still pushing their infiltration to several other methods, including through Nepal routes, getting into the mainland and then going and creating trouble in the valley. That type of things are still happening. So Northeast is another geographical region where we need to be there. Legacy was a heavy disaffection. They were not part of the India. That's where I congratulate Dr. Jitendra Singh that he is the man who has sealed the Northeast with India. Otherwise, prior to that, it was simply an annexure to India. This is before 2014. 14 to 18, the disaffections were affected. Huge infrastructure was built, and intra-state conflicts were there. There was now Naga Accord is one such example of how conflict resolutions have been done. The Honorable Governor who achieved it is now the Honorable His Excellency the Governor of Tamil Nadu, but he was a former intelligence officer, a very senior ranking, and he had a lot of experience. He had achieved now what had not been achieved for several years, for 20 years or before. But I think Smriti Irani was the minister. I was the director in the Ministry of Textiles at that time. She introduced the issue of e-daga, where over mobile phone they can place an indent and get the yarn, so that the weaving continues for continuously, and they are able to do that. These are all facts, verifiable facts. And livelihood was there. But Chinese have done still into mischief in that area. Connectivity improvement has addressed this issue, but still the alert and the Chinese mischief needs to be countered. kidnapping innocent trespassers into the Chinese territory, especially in Arunachal, had happened recently. What type of radicalization they do is $1 million question, but that is being addressed by the government of India. Illegal immigration, NRC, illegal immigration has been to a great extent covered by the border fencing, but certain areas in Meghalaya, where there is a riverine border division, or even in Tripura, it is a little bit of challenge, and that needs, and besides that, the NRC was ignored. It was no government can take credit for it. It was one Buyan couple who had moved to the Supreme Court, and the NRC was a Supreme Court directed exercise on which some sort of disaffection was sought to be created by vested interests like the Indian National Congress and others, who said that, or in the Indian National Congress and others, that it is a case of dispossessing the Muslims of the thing. But that is not the case. NRC was Supreme Court directed. Christian conversion, it has, now this is another mischief which has come to the light of in many states. This is actually, we have recently seen that lot of things have been taken by the Chief Minister of Assam. But I still feel that the FRO's presence in more districts, instead of leaving to the district superintendent of police, we need to have FRO presence through the proper channels, so that they can, the district superintendent of police can share the burden with them, or be a supplementary load. Now, we had the problem of left-wing extremism during this first decade of the millennium, but lot of ground has been covered recently, excepting a few cases like the Sukma ambush a few years back. And this has been covered actually through a solid handling by police support. Sukma thing happened, and center took charge. Sukma thing happened because there was some internecine issue between two politicians in the Chhattisgarh area. That's the reason it happened. But later on, center took over. I don't want to name the politicians. InfoWar is happening. In fact, one of the journalists whose wife is a major activist, in left-wing activist, we used to take a lot of people there and disaffection and spread all InfoWar. That has been a case, but we need wire, that the paper which was building on that the newspaper, wire and print and all, that has been, a lot of successes have been achieved, but we need to really keep it sustained, keep the foot on the pedal. We cannot remove the foot from the pedal because they are waiting to pounce on you. Rangdari economic issues are still an issue there, because the tribal rights are related to economic. For example, the Dakini river, which has mentioned in Ramayana also, it's such a historical river. When it was being corrupted or it was being polluted during Digvijay Singh's time as the chief minister, all of us were turning Rainbow. That is the root cause of disaffection and Naxal movement being spreading to that area of Chhattisgarh. The Baildila mines, the National Mineral Development Corporation was throwing sludge into that place, and that is where it triggered. Because they were so much attached to that, that was a major source of potable water supply to the country. I've written about it in a book. So these are all the, in the hinterland is the fourth geographical area, non-conventional sector, non-state actors are working like that. Radicalization at the rampant, you have the Shraddha murder case, or you have been the love jihad cases and all, information warfare. FCRO, the NPOs or the non-government organizations are a major thing. Honorable Home Minister, we have been suggesting to him, he has been taking a lot of action on that. Even certain people refused to apply for extension last year. It became a big news item. There have been others issues, but FCRA, climatic changes issued, this is used for disruption, like in the Sterilite case. Economic disruption also happened, the Wistron unrest, or the LG leak, or even the Serum Institute's fire. These are all very clear signs of some invisible hand trying to disrupt the economic juggernaut of India, and that is where the security concerns are also very, very important. Similarly, biological, we saw what happened in the Corona period, how it was clearly a biological warfare emanating from thing. Hinterland, PFI has been banned. See, Sartan se juda hijab, that radicalization part, it comes. Similarly, Islamophobia, victimhood is being played. Drugs and contraband is a very, very major issue which needs to be addressed. Khalistan is raising its head again. The root causes may be anywhere, but Khalistan issue is raised. CAA and farm law protests came under the info war, which was spread by the Khalistanis as well as the across the border. Otherwise, about this one of the act of the farm laws about the stubble burning, I had written an article in 2018, which is again available in the book called When Money Rates, about how Pakistan ISI is sponsoring this stubble burning to create an unrest, and that has come true. In that book, most of the essays I had written in 2016, 18 and all have come true. It is available, Garuda publication. What is the takeout? What is the takeaway? I will give it in a Shivalinga format. So Shivalinga, at the top of it is the Surya and Soma Surya ki Lochanayanam hai. Surya represents Ramarajya. Ramarajya means the Antayodhya, the lowest common denominator, gets the rights first. He gets ruled, he gets the benefits of the governance first before even the Rama gets it. That is the level of relevance in the side. On the other side is the Yama. Yama is a person who is totally objective, no recommendation, no fear of air. When your times come, he will come and act you, whether it is a Raja or Rang or Fakir. So that is the level of, in application of governance, penal laws, that should be the approach. That is the level of leadership we require, and more or less we are having it. There may be certain political compulsion, international compulsion, but the rulership more or less is happening like that. When Premier said that every person is informed instead of a very important person, that is one of the sign of that. Now at the strategic level, it should be, as I say, Yadyada Charati, strategic secretary and others, they lead the team. Yadyada Charati Shrestata Tadya Deva Janotara, their behavior should be, as per Bhagavad Gita 3.21, their behavior should be such that others emulate them. And another level is the tactical level, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Tatra Partho Dhanurdhara hai. That is the competence level of the tactical level should be the highest. Because in that shloka, Lord Krishna has said, what is competence is defined there. What is competence is, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Partha's marksmanship's competence is the ultimate. There is nothing more competent than that. And that is what is the level of ability and competence required in the context of the challenges we are facing. And again, at the operational level, for example, it says, Anyadya Shuklam, this is again from our Sitaramji's Aruna Prashna, Anyadya Shuklam, Yatashakta, you have the objectives correct, clean. It should be clean hands, objectives should be clean. Yatashakti, what is within your power, use that. When it is within your power, don't ask your senior to clear that. You exercise your power as per your delegation. Only when there is not required, you go beyond that. As well as do only what is within your powers. Both ways it is. So that is the way. Similarly, the Yauni of the Shiva represents the power pyramid of that. So this is where the capacity building, police population, vigilance, legal framework, expeditious judicial convictions also should be a very, very important aspect of national security. Strong, then the base of the Shiva is the Mooladhara. 1 minute, Mooladhara. There I have explained about the strong intelligence gathering measures, strengthens beat constable system, enrolls government to citizen engagement, etc. And that is how I tried to put it well. There are certain possible panaceas. I have lifted out constitutional amendment to bring security and under the union, internal security under union list, and certain increased population ratio, muscular approach. Ensure that judiciary expedites the cases, capacity building on specific policing like desert, mega city policing, marine policing, which and CAPF attachment to all the government officers like the territorial army, increase the conviction rate. This is where this judiciary is creating, is quite a challenge nowadays, but we need to have a continuous engagement. And last word, first Chief of Defence Staff, General Rawat said, India is fighting a 2.5 war. But the recent developments have shown that India is fighting actually a 3.5 war, because northeast certain developments have recently taken place, including the intra-state conflicts being peddled from somewhere outside the country. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much. I think I have done my justice to this subject.
Thank you, Mani sir. I think this issue of internal security is very vital. Just for the audience thought, just reflect where all we have internal security threats, as Mani sir has mentioned, and think of the economic potential of that area. They all areas, because fortunately I've worked in all those disturbed areas, I can tell you they all have potential to become the highest per capita income generating locations. The potential in J&K, I was advisor to J&K government when BJP government was there on horticulture policy. The amount of investments and return which is possible just from one crop called apple is 50,000 crores per year. And it's a recurring. You don't have to invest any factories there. Just grow and transport. The problem was no logistics. How many trucks reaches J&K and how much production happens? Simply by maintaining logistics, you can create that wealth. Northeast, we all talk about transporting milk, and to supply milk, what we have done? We started doing dairy development there. All the money which we are investing in production of cows and rearing of cows, all those cows are smuggled into Bangladesh. So what we are doing? We are feeding Bangladesh through our resources. My request to Government of India was that forget cow, dairy development in Northeast, you focus on piggeries. Nobody will smuggle. Okay? Now what will happen? You have milk production in rest of the country, and rest of the country does not have piggery. So barter within the country, and all the Buddhist states are around the Northeast. Thailand, Myanmar, Burma, and all those. They all eat pig. So we export from there. We have to think logical. What we do is, we become emotional instead of logical. And wherever you have problems in, all these Naxalites, they all are mining areas, cash-rich areas. In India, we talk about, and I tell you that because I was doing trading in those areas, we talk about banks are charging very high. In Naxalite area, you know what is the interest rate? 0. Who gives you funding? All those Naxals. You don't need security. You don't need collateral. They say how much money you need. They do a lot of extortion. You take 5 crores, take it, use it in your business. Can you run away with their money? You can run banks' money. They will shoot you if you run. So it is secure because that is collateral is your life. Look at the banking system. And that is why when I used to tell my trader, कि यार, I need this material, I used to buy 2,000 to 3,000 tons material a day, per day basis. But how you get this cash? How much you want, sir? How much you pay? Nothing. We just give the security. So point here is that unless we look into economic angle to internal security threats, we will not be able to sell. Socialism is not the answer. It's the economy which is the answer. And we are not giving due attention to economic issues in those disturbed areas. Anyway, there are a lot many things which can be shared. Now, another area which is very, very important when it comes to security is external security. And I'm leaving one thought with you all before I invite General Dhillon on this issue. How many countries want India to become developed? How many countries want India to become a supplier? That is why they keep troubling you, they keep feeding all those anti-social elements from outside. I have, as a country, suppose I have a business interest in India, I want to export to you edible oil. Every year I'm exporting $20 billion. Okay? If India becomes self-reliant, what will happen to my business? I will lose. To save 20 billion, can't I invest 20 million to extremists? Is a return on investment is far better. By feeding terrorists, as an outsider, return on investment, to protect my business of $1 billion, I can always spend $1 million, isn't it? That is the logic we have to understand. But how to handle, what are the challenges, what to look at it, I think General Dhillon is the better person to guide us. Over to you, sir.
So thank you very much for inviting me. After listening to all these things, I thought, rather I'm thinking, no, I'm not very, very competent person to answer some of these questions because I've been a field soldier throughout. But since we are talking about security, I have some antecedents because from First World War, Till today, we have been talking about J&K. My son is sitting right on LOC. He is the 5th generation soldier. As for my knowledge, before that, I'll just tell you small, because I was trying to keep this watch on so that I don't, cross the time because it's at premium. Some place people are standing, how some competition was going on. They said anybody who jumps into this pool, swimming pool or whatever, that pool has a crocodile. So they say anybody who comes out on the other side, safe, he'll get 5 crores. So nobody was daring that. Person like me, wife was saying, she just pushed him. कहती है अगर वो खा लिया crocodile ने तब भी ठीक है, अगर निकला है तो 5 crore अपना है. So that's why they say behind every successful man there is a woman. But same on the other side, if there is an unsuccessful man, same it is there. Because whatever I knew till my marriage, I lost all that. And whatever I know now, it is because 45 years back I got married to her. So, issue is very serious. Because I can only say, whatever threats are there, any country, they have to face threats. But I, as a security man, I have a friend sitting there, officer. I can assure you, you can count back on us. Army has not let down, Army, Navy, Air Force, they have not let down the country any time. First World War, Second World War, again, there are a lot of stories. Manekshaw was one who got so many bullets, he was in the war there. And before that also, we have, Saragadi, that Paltan is still there. They repeated Saragadi, that 4 Sikh now. Earlier it was 36 Sikh. They are 4 Sikh now. Picture you have seen, but unfortunately, picture people are very impressed, but they are hardly interested in knowing who are the actual people. 4 Sikh is still there, and they have a lot of history in every war. So, like 47, 48, we were just not prepared. But Razakars came or whatever Kabailis came, and when something was signed, these are all political. But when army was told, okay, now take on, our people landed whatever way they could go. There were not many good roads. But when they landed first time in Srinagar airport, in big force in the aircrafts, that was the first Sikh regiment, first battalion of the Sikh regiment. And since that it is known as Infantry Day, that was 27th October. And after that, you know what happened. There are stories of bravery and bravery. And though 62, we got little pounding, but if you open net, fortunately, many stories which I also didn't know because I was not, I was only 8th class student that time when 62 happened. We only going chini kutte maar deo like that, what we were doing as school children. But when you read the stories, yesterday was Rizangla Day. People like that in those in-hospital areas, people are found frozen there whenever things came time to see them. So after that you count 65, in between which most country doesn't know, 67 something happened at Nathula. Chinese thought that we have given a good beating to Indian army. So they again tried something. Nathula, if you know again history, there is a point where Mr. Chow Enlai and Mr. Nehru met. And today there is a big chunk of barbed wire lying, where we lost few people, but Chinese lost more. When they were trying to put, our people are trying to put border pickets, Chinese tried to stop it. Like picket is the iron picket, their political officer put a hand there and our person had already taken, hammer up. It came there, firing came, but then they taught them a lesson. And apart from our Rajput regiment, Grenadiers, there were so many units, but there was one artillery unit with whom I was engineer officer 73 to 75. That was with the 5.5 guns only, British guns. So our people, you give them Boffer, you give them, I think you are a gunner officer, no? Yeah. So you ask them. But my thing is, we talked that Boffer is the savior of Kargil. But then why, when Boffer was being imported, it was coming with transfer of technology. Again, some political thing, the import didn't happen, technology didn't come, and I retired as Director General Quality Assurance, Ministry of Defense in 2009, which deal with only these things, getting technology, getting it manufactured in the country. So these are some political decisions, but later on, now a lot of development has taken place, and that also is not one day's job. I joined Navy also because I could not afford to do engineering thanks to my father who was shunted out of the army because INA, even though my grandfather, second generation, he had a car in 1935, but later on all of us were cycling till about, I was telling today, very happy to see in the IT, students cycling. And then officer, my friend will tell, in our young officers course, even if somebody is a very big person's son, he had to be on the cycle. Whereas IMA or OTS or when we were doing young officers course also. But that thing made us so much for the country that we are servants of the country. So we'll do anything, whatever comes, and any war you talk about. Today, again, yesterday, again, I wrote some article back home, some local, this thing was being published. So, I was trying to tell the indigenization, 68 I joined Navy. There was a foundation laid of INS Nilgiri, first indigenous aircraft at Mesgon Talks. So things were happening. I will not talk about IITs and IIMs before that, but then it started, that the private Mesgon Dog is semi-government and something like that. But I was there as a direct entry petty officer, like a Naib Subedar of the army, which I went as my first posting, pending my officer's result, which my grandfather will not let us sit at home. Then 2009, now we all know about Vikrant. I was Director General Quality Assurance because I had two rear admirals under me. So we laid the keel of this Vikrant. There were a lot of problems with the engine and all. I'm so happy that today, of course, with the present government, speed has taken up, which is, very, very good sign. Some that Dhanush gun has come and now we have involved a lot of Kalyani and Tata and L&T were already into the job when I was DGQA. But now so many other things and things are made much simpler. Yesterday again I was talking to my officer here who is very senior. They have made things very simple because corporate was finding a lot of difficulties. So that will tackle many security problems. But actually I feel these are equipment problems, soldiers, they'll not let the country down. But what problems keep on bothering my mind? Because I am in the civil for last 13 years. I am sure nobody can believe I was offered a governor's post when I retired in 2009 because dealing with the equipment worth 2 lakh crores every year, I had to interact with a lot of people who knew me, but at the same time it was very, it was a very difficult job. But then somehow, because I had grown up from a village where I was rearing only cows and buffaloes, I was from that background. Somebody called me, come back home, I went there. I am there for last 13 years. So what I've seen there, biggest threat today you call it external or internal are drugs. We all blame one side. I remember, again my friend Officer Wilde, I was doing a pre-staff course in Kasauli. One very eminent expert from Tribune, he gave us lecture, they were called. He said, you are after Pakistan. He said, your real enemy is China. He said, they're like a pincer movement, they'll catch you from Pakistan to Nepal to Bhutan to, with the drugs, they will feed drugs and it has happened. And nobody is worse sufferer than Punjab. As for this thing, but why somewhere, let him, I'm not, my things are straight with no inkling this side, that side. 3,000 kgs drug was caught at Mudra airport, Mudra port. How much would have passed out without being caught? So there, if we make our Coast Guard extra strong, because now drones they have started using in Pakistan, where some weapons are thrown, very, very serious threat. But again, by now, like IITs, these people should have been involved long back. There's no difficulty. My son is making all the drones. He's a EME officer like me. There are army, they're doing a lot of research by themselves. I was looking after one Aero India where this Rafale and all were finalized. 2007, I was taking care as a Major General there in Bangalore, where I was director of one institute there. Then 2009 as a DGQ from Delhi on behalf of Defense Production Ministry. We were having security, Air Force officer, IB, everybody. I said, yaar, drone ka aapne kuch dekha hai? They said, what is that drone? I said, ye NCC wale jo udate hain na, aapne dekha ground mein khade ho kaise. Kehte, usse kya hoga? I say, yes, you just put 1 kg of TNT or RDX or something. There are 100 aircrafts of all countries standing there, he'll just bring them. Then those IB people would have gone home and looked into this thing. Next day, they were talking only about drones. And today, Punjab border or Rajasthan, J&K, it is only drones and drones problem. And again, well, thanks to the government, you know, we are finding BSF is very active. They have already downed many drones with that. But if we can tackle those type of things, but to my mind, drugs, you know, they are not only earlier people are there, theek hai, chota mota, you know, in army, of course. I am not declaring here that we don't treat drinking as, you know, crime, because there we say, drinking is not a crime, getting drunk is a crime. Anybody, he may be looking for becoming general, but then if his boss says he cannot hold his drinks, gone. But there also we only social drinking, but this drug type, it ruins the person from inside. We are seeing every day. You also will be able to see from here. So that again, who has to tackle? I think a lot of efforts are taking place now. If something from Mudra, you know, NIA went to Amritsar, they caught a person there. You know, it is a big network. It is all, as he said, nobody wants us to develop out of these. हमें अगर शांति होगी तो I don't know, we'll be exporting and exporting to the world, which already happening. You are seeing ordnance factories have been corporatized. So these are the, you know, dynamic steps which the government is taking. Small thing like security, internal security. Army's uniform. There are big orders that nobody can copy this uniform. You see security guards at the jewelry shop, they'll put, which I could not put as a full colonel, they will be putting that cap. Police, Punjab police will put on those, उन्होंने अपना commandos बना लिया. Today, as last note, now army has designed new uniform which they have got patented. Very small thing, but earlier on the roads, on the somewhere, people saw army uniform, law and order will come to stand under control. Because army never fired to injure. They said one bullet, ek goli, ek dushman. But when the army was brought on to the, you know, in our own areas, we were not dealing with the dushman. Then we always tried, of course, they are injured. But it is a good thing that government has, you know, this thing. OG color of vehicles. If from Maruti it has started coming in OG color because people like it. With OG color, you just put a light there and you go to the barrier of this thing. Hey, gate kholo. Oh, बेचारा डर जाता है. You say, yes, sir. A person like me, he'll ask me 10 questions. यार आप तो अफसर लगते ही नहीं. मैं क्यों खोलूं? I show him a identity card. This and but with that OG color does everything. I've been reporting there. In Firozpur, I was posted there. There is just a border area. House is just there. So these are some of the problems which government is taking very seriously. If somebody patenting army uniform, I am sure somebody would have thought of it. कि यार very big नहीं तो कोई भी कहीं भी घुस जाएगा in the very sensitive installations. And biggest security threat, I would say, we are here in the classroom. How many of us, don't mind please, you know, there are better professions. My daughter could not join army. She is sitting in Canada now. She was a hockey player because she couldn't get into Indian team. Again, because of corruption, I couldn't pay 20,000 rupees. Nor I knew how to take 20,000, nor I could pay 20,000. But my son, I can say with pride, he is 5th generation in the army. How many of our children are there in the Army, Navy, Air Force? Only they will know the problems of security. And now we visited him somewhere. It is all now closed with the, you know, snow. And in the night, keeping awake, this and that, you know. Udi, they made a picture on that. You know, Udi, the surgical strike. Mr. Vicky Kaushal, he is from my place, Hoshiarpur. His father, Sham Kaushal, who was the person in that Dangal picture. But when actually that 4 para lost few people, Vicky Kaushal had no words to even कि भाई आपको कुछ पैसा भेजना है या कुछ करना है या कोई even words of condolence. So maybe people have to start taking pride back कि भाई officer बनने में कोई pride है defense में जाने से officer हो या दूसरा हो. I have no other things. People ask me a lot of Agniveer. I said no problem. It is up to government's prerogative. So, but at least those who are 25, they should be motivated. Lot those going to stay. And PVC, what I said, people, I go to any, this, I start with that.
Sir.
Yeah. So I gave suggestion, if any of us also today, this is there, this is against security threat, like we don't know what our brave hearts did. If we don't know the names of 21, at least we should know. We can read a lot from here. These are a few things which will tackle. As I said, I am really not expert. My lecture cannot be that way because I don't know exactly, because then lecture goes long if I have to put PPT. But whatever little things, they are very ground level problems. I hope it answers few things. If I have not been able to cover exactly, I am sorry for that. but I've got honor to be amongst this very elite people sitting here and also elite people listening. Thank you so much for inviting us and listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you, General Sir. It was an honor for us to have you here and to listen to your thoughts. Now we are entering into another very, very important domain. And I think this is where India's biggest challenge is. And if we can address these two words, I think many, many issues which we are discussing since morning or last 2-3 days, we can fix it. Let me give you a live example with a context. How important governance is. We have two banks in India. One of the largest bank is SBI. SBI's annual income, interest income is almost 3 lakh crores. And the market capitalization of SBI is 4.5 lakh crores. There's another bank which is half the income, which is HDFC, earns almost 1.5 lakh crores as the interest income. The valuation of that bank is 9 lakh crores. Why? Government is same, Prime Minister is same, Constitution is same, market is same, everything is same. What is difference? The quality of governance. That makes the difference. Good governance brings premium as a destination for investment, as a law and order, as an investment in R&D, investment or quality of education, quality of healthcare. If quality of governance improves, everything improves. And how many professional colleges, including IITs, I'm a student of IIM Ahmedabad, we teach governance? None. We teach mechanics, marketing, finance, accounts, OB, engineering, chemistry, physics, mechanical, all sorts of things. But we never teach governance. And jokingly, I used to say that ethics in business is an optional subject in management. It's a satire. Don't teach, how managers will learn why ethics are important in business. And that's why one of the most adulterated food available anywhere in the world is India. Because we never teach ethics in business. A whole lot of issues to look at it. I'm sure we have one of the very important person with us who is having a great experience as a chief secretary of one of the largest state, discussing on policy. Singhal Saab is, as a very senior bureaucrat, almost like 4 decades experience in governance and policy making. Let's listen to him that if India has to become a global power or Vishwaguru, what should be policies and governance model for India? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vijay, and friends on dais. Dr. Gangopadhyay, whom I have been in touch with some time, last couple of months. Well, I will say this way, to start off, that I like to focus my little bit of thoughts on some concerns. And I'll request, because it's a very literate and intellectual audience, to just ponder on those thoughts and experiences. I had an occasion to serve as an SDM and till Chief Secretary of the State, is almost last 40 years, and central government also. The people who are sitting in the hall or might be on the dais, being an outsider to the governance and being the insider of the governance, seeing from people like Mayawatis and Mulayams and Amar Singhs and even if Rajnath Singhs and these people, the private life of these people teach you what the governance is. And once you get into it, I've seen, and incidentally, I'm not an IAS officer only, with experience of 40 years. I was married to a media family, which is the largest newspaper of state, my state. And I've seen governance from the days of Chaudhry Charan Singh and Baugunas, and those people have experienced for last so many years. First-hand experience I am telling. And today my batchmate is the Cabinet Secretary of India, so is #1 officer in India. So we know what I'm going to speak to. My just 2-3 observations. Number one, don't laugh at it, but the biggest crisis in governance is IS officer. That is the first observation I'd like to make. We, my camaraderie of bureaucrats who runs the country, as a civil service, is the biggest obstacle to governance. It's a harsh statement I'm making, but just think about it. The person who's being posted as, I was the Chief Secretary of the state, if I post someone as Cultural Secretary of Uttar Pradesh, if Cabinet Secretary posts someone as Cultural Secretary of India, he will cry 5 times in his house, oh God, I'm the worst officer, why I was posted as Cultural Secretary. That is the reality of life. If a Cultural Secretary of India or Cultural Secretary of State, if he doesn't come with this mindset to run governance for India, then you can imagine what will happen to these intellectuals who are fighting out for culture. I'm just placing an observation. Secondly, I want to say that I have been into the subject myself only just for 4-5 months, must have read 100 books in the last 4-5 months. It's a transformation in myself when I passed through COVID and my personal experience in life, with losing a couple of my family members. I realized life is something more than being into power, politics, and money. We have seen enough. I've seen enough. You know, UP Chief Secretary is the only Chief Secretary in the state, Mr. Sardana, you must not be knowing, although economist, who has a dedicated plane and helicopter to the Chief Secretary. That is only state in the country. No one else. So we have that kind of power and politics I've seen. And everything we have seen as district magistrate. If you are a collector of Meerut district, if you've been done collector of a couple of districts in Uttar Pradesh, you have seen the power to root. You can destroy someone's life. If you've been industry secretary of the state or industry secretary of the state, like I used to joke with, my colleagues in Haryana who is the principal advisor, chief minister, like Haryana is like a divisional commissioner of Meerut. If you've done UP, then you have seen the world. You see 1/6 of the country. Similarly, India 1/6 of the world. So this is the way it happens. Now, my biggest concern today is for top to bottom is the conduct of the governance. I don't find any reason when Obama can live in a flat in America after retirement or getting out of the politics, why people like Sonia Gandhi's and Atal Bihari's and these people right from top to bottom lives in a secured huge houses in India after being out. Think about it. Things percolate from top. It is never discussed. It is never discussed, no one debates. Because I can tell you one thing, as an IS officer, as we have discussed everything informally and over a drink or a food, these politicians are one. Each political system is one. What you see, you talk about security. You tell me a state where 30% of the police of the state is just involved in making security of the politicians. I was the Home Secretary of UP. Every politician's job in India today is to get 4 gunners, 5 gunners, 6 vehicles. Someone will come here with 5 vehicles. Do you think this kind of thing happening in Finland? I've been 80 countries of the world I've been in my life. I've never seen this anywhere else. Even a British Prime Minister, when they get out of 10 Downing Street, it doesn't happen like that. So, we can speak of many things sitting in this dais and give all kind of updesh, ki bhai aisa karo, waisa karo. But go into the grassroots. He's been under secretary in this department where my batch was the Home Secretary. I know the ground reality. So unless until there is a debate on the ground reality, maybe on television where Mr. Sardana I have seen every day, so or maybe any other parts of newspapers, unless until you start developing a habit of accepting and knowing a truth, India is going to be in no way developing. No way. You say you are becoming Vishwaguru. I'll say reverse. Who is Guru? India was producing Guru when we had a Gurukul system. India was producing Gurus when the people knew about Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, which I have read in the last 4 months. India was Guru when they knew that who invented mathematics, Aryabhatta. India was a Guru when our friend Vedvir Arya has taught me that when we go antiquity of our chronology, I learned from Vedveer. So in last 4 months, I have learned from everyone across the country. I've spoken almost 100 people, professors from Madras to this place. I personally went. I went to ASI office. One officer told me, sir, you are a chief secretarial officer, your batchmate is cabinet secretary, you're going to meet assistant director. I said, I'm going as a student. You don't have to, only thing you'll give me a chaprasi who can bring me to your room. I'm not having an ego crisis. The biggest crisis of governance is what our governor told in the morning, which I jokingly said he's an old friend of mine, Arif Saab, and मैंने कहा साहब आपका तो जो after listening to your lecture, I think this 4 lines you should teach to every IS and IPS officers in India. Arrogance, I know everything, I should get out of this IS. अरे मेरे के अलावा तो दुनिया में किसी कुछ आता ही नहीं, सब कुछ मुझे ही आता है, बस मेरे अलावा नहीं आता, और बाकी को कुछ नहीं आता. This is the crisis. Now, second thing is illiteracy. I will say my biggest concern today is the illiteracy which I have been learning to myself from Dr. Gangopadhyay on telephone every day. Half an hour I speak on him in last 1 month on telephone to US, and I was learning. I was myself completely illiterate, I can tell you. 40 years, I was a student of IIT Delhi myself. I was the first IAS officer who came through from Roorkee University. I topped mechanical engineering. I came to this hostel, stayed here in Vindhyachal hostel as a student in IIT. I never went to my class. Who was my director? He said कि ठीक है सिंघल साहब आपको फेल करेंगे. मैंने करके देख लो, इतना पढ़ते हैं. I was 10 pointer here, 4 pointer there. तो पढ़ने से तो ठीक मैं पा गया. पढ़ने में मैंने बहुत सीखा, बहुत देखा, इंजीनियरिंग देखी, देश देख लिया, दुनिया देख ली, लेकिन अपने को नहीं देखा. वो भूल गए. समस्या ये है कि हम अपने को ही नहीं देख पा रहे हैं. हमारी स्ट्रेंथ क्या है वो मुझे डॉक्टर गंगोपाध्याय और उनकी टीम ने सिखाया कि हम हैं क्या. वेदवीर आर्या उनकी टीम ने सिखाया हम हैं क्या, हमारी स्ट्रेंथ क्या थी, हमारा सिस्टम क्या है. आज भी इस कंसर्न है. मैं आज भी सुबह कहीं अपने सीनियर साथियों से बात कर रहा था सीखने के बाद. इन टुडे डेट ऑल्सो आफ्टर वी आर सेलिब्रेटिंग 75th ईयर ऑफ कल्चरल रेनेसांस इन दिस आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस. There is not a single institution today in the country, in India, and it's a matter of shame. And I'm telling to the open forum, I've told to a lot of senior people that I'm drawing their attention, I'm not criticizing. There is not an umbrella organization in the country which talk on symbol कि भारतीय संस्कृति ज्ञान का कोई धरोहर संस्थान एक हो पूरे राष्ट्र का, जिसके अंदर सब कुछ आ जाए, जिसके अंदर what you know, आपके उसके अंदर सारी डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं, आपके वेद पुराण. हम कहते हैं सब जल गए. आई मेट डायरेक्टर माइका, वो कहता है साहब मैं 10 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ. आई मेट हिम ऑल्सो मिस्टर मेहता. इसे 10 आई गॉट 1 लाख पेपर्स ऑन द वे जिस तरह से नालंदा तक्षशिला सब जला है वो सारा मेरे पास है. तो सो फिर मुझे उनकी बात याद आई. द बिगेस्ट क्रिमिनल टू द सोसाइटी हु इज जस्ट possessing knowledge and not transferring the knowledge to someone is a criminal. Which today in the morning Arif Saab has said कि जो आदमी अपने नॉलेज को रखा रहे, अपने पास दबा के रखा रहे, वो उसका कोई सिस्टम न बनाए उसको परकोलेट करने के लिए, और सिस्टम सरकार बनाएगी, सिस्टम तो कोई और नहीं बना सकता है. दिस इज द सेकेंड ऑब्जर्वेशन आई वांट टू प्लेस. द थर्ड थिंग इज वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड अबाउट द एंटिक्विटी ऑफ आवर कल्चर. दिस इज अनडिस्प्यूटेड. कहने की बात ही नहीं है कि साहब कोई कहता है हम हड़प्पन थे, कोई आर्यन आए हैं, ये सब पढ़ लिख के मैंने देख लिया, ये सब बकवास है. I think this is time to bundle out this Marxist historians and colonial historians. हमने कर लिया जो कुछ करना था नेहरू एरा में. बड़े मैं दर्द हो रहा था मुझे सुन के. मैं किसी अपने हैदराबाद के साथी को सुन रहा था जो मैंने बातें सुनी कि किसी निज़ाम ने 40,000 इतने लोगों को मार दिया, इतने हिंदू औरतों को रेप कर दिया. मैंने मथुरा का पढ़ा पूरा. मथुरा में मीनाक्षी जैन की किताब में अगर पढ़ी है तो मथुरा में एक आदमी आता था, कोई हिंदू खूबसूरत औरत मिले छोड़ना नहीं है. तो ये जानने की क्या ज़रूरत नहीं है? क्या ये फाइट आज धर्म और जिहाद के बीच में नहीं है? क्या अब किनारे पे हमें अफगानिस्तान बांग्लादेश में क्या हो रहा है दिख नहीं रहा है? तो ये सब चीज़ें जो लार्जर कंसर्न्स हैं हमारी सोसाइटी में, और एक तरफ है धर्म की लड़ाई बिना किसी अर्थ के, कोई अर्थ सपोर्ट नहीं है. आज आप सरदाना साहब कितनी इकोनॉमिक्स की बातें कर लें, जरा जाके तो बोलिए किसी अंबानी जी को, अडानी जी को, जिनको मैं पर्सनली जानता हूँ, अगर एक जना भी कह दें वो ठीक है किसी चंदा देने के लिए पार्टी में 1000 करोड़ दे देंगे, लेकिन इनको सेमिनार करने के लिए 5 रुपये नहीं देंगे. कल्चर प्रोटेक्ट करने को कोई नहीं देगा, 1 रुपया नहीं देगा, किताब लिखने के लिए नहीं देगा, रिसर्च करने के लिए नहीं देगा. तो उससे उनको क्या मिलेगा? वेदवीर जी रिसर्च कर लेंगे तो उनको कौन सी वेल्थ बढ़ रही है किसी इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट की? मैं तो आप नेम द इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट इन दिस कंट्री whom I don't know personally on their mobile terms today also, but they will go to Harvard University. वहाँ मार्क्सिस्ट लिखेगा इतिहास को, वेदवीर साहब लिखेंगे 9000 साल पुरानी मेरी इतिहास है क्रोनोलॉजी, उसको 1 रुपया नहीं मिलेगा। तो ये हमारी सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न तो ये है, मेंटल बैंक्रप्सी। तो ये सोचना पड़ेगा इसमें। बट यू नो फॉर्चुनेटली वी हैव गॉट अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर टुडे, a single man which I am seeing is a sant, which my experience with handling him is that उनका माइंड चलता है, he says to hell with governance, मुझे करना है। हम लोग एक बार कश्मीर गए थे, हमने खुद वहाँ से लिखा एट ए लेवल, आई विल नॉट शेयर सम प्राइवेट थिंग्स, बट लिखा कि 370 खत्म करने का कोई चारा नहीं। व्हाई दिस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स इन दिस कंट्री? आप आज भी आपको हमको दुख होता है। आई वॉज द चीफ सेक्रेटरी ऑफ दैट स्टेट जिसमें सब कुछ था, जिसमें मथुरा भी था, जिसमें काशी भी था, जिसमें अयोध्या भी था, जिसमें देवबंद भी था, जिसमें आपका ये बरेलवी सेक्ट में वहाँ डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट और कमिश्नर दोनों रहा हूँ, और लखनऊ भी था। तीनों एक्सट्रीम एंड देख लिए। लेकिन 75 ईयर्स की आज़ादी के बाद क्या आपको पता है सरदना साहब कि आज भी आप नकली मंदिर में काशी विश्वनाथ में पूजा कर रहे हैं? पुराण में लिखा है, पढ़िए ढंग से। मिस्टर मनी डीजी आर्कियोलॉजी ने मुझे परसों लिख के भेजा जब मैंने उससे रिसर्च कराई। मेरे पास मथुरा के सारे कागज हैं काशी के। ये पुराण में लिखा है, काशी खंड में लिखा है कि मेरे दक्षिण में जो कवापी है वहाँ पर वो मेरा मंदिर है। ये साफ लिखा है धर्म में। लेकिन भारतवर्ष का कोई समाचार पत्र उसको लिखेगा नहीं। आपकी इकोनॉमिक को आप भी कहिए टेलीविजन के भाषण में, आप दो रोज कहते हैं सरदना साहब, डोंट टेक इट एज ऑफेंसिव, यही कह दीजिए आसाम के भाषण में कि साहब इस देश में इस बात पे भी चिंता होना चाहिए। इकोनॉमी तो रह जाएगी, मैं बचूंगा तो इकोनॉमी रहेगी ना। इकोनॉमिक्स तो आलू टमाटर तो उग जाएंगे फिर भी अगर नहीं उगेंगे, लेकिन जब बचेंगे ही नहीं आने चल के, अगर हमारी जनरेशन के थर्ड जनरेशन की लेडीज के साथ वही होना है तो मुझे आलू टमाटर नहीं चाहिए, मैं अपना आराम से सत्तू खा के जी लूँगा, वो ज़्यादा अच्छा है। ये सोचना पड़ेगा सबको। आई एम सीरियस ऑन दिस कंसर्न। द थर्ड थिंग इज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज कंडक्ट फ्रॉम द टॉप, then collapse of institutions, collapse of executive, collapse of judiciary, collapse of we have seen in last 40 years ourselves. अभी क्या है, IAS ऑफिसर 60 साल पूरे नहीं हुए, वो 2 साल के सेक्रेटरीशिप में कुछ नहीं करेगा, वो जाता रहेगा घूमता रहेगा, मुझे यहाँ गवर्नर बना दो, मुझे LG बना दो, मुझे ये कर दो, मुझे वो कर दो, ये सारी उम्र उसमें ये लगा रहेगा। थोड़ा सा कोई काम कर ले, कोई मुकदमा लगाएगा तो वो जाके किसी रूलिंग पार्टी को सूट करेगा, मुझे MP का टिकट दे दो, मुझे MLA का टिकट दे दो। मैंने तो नहीं पाया डॉक्टर गंगोपाध्याय के अंदर ये चीज, जिनसे साथ में टच में आया या उनके साथियों से, वो अपने साइलेंट होकर काम कर रहे हैं। राष्ट्र के लिए थिंक टैंक बनाने पड़ेंगे। मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है कि अगर राष्ट्र की तरक्की है तो मेक सम साइलेंट थिंक टैंक्स, एंड दोज थिंक टैंक्स हैव टू कम ऑन ए कॉमन थ्रेड, कॉमन प्लेटफॉर्म। लास्ट 2-3 चीज़ और मैं कहूँगा, जब आप बात करते हैं भारतीय संस्कृति की तो उसमें मेरा एक निवेदन है डॉक्टर साहब से खासकर, बस लास्ट 2 मिनट में अपनी बात को ख़त्म कर रहा हूँ कि व्हेन वी स्पीक मेजॉरिटी ऑफ टाइम आई वाज थिंकिंग भाई वेद पुराण उपनिषद सब बात कर रहे हैं। इसमें भारतीय संस्कृति में जैनिज्म, बुद्धिज्म और इसका जो सिखिज्म का भी इंटीग्रेटेड व्यू लीजिए। योर फाइट इज नॉट अगेंस्ट, योर फाइट इज अगेंस्ट जिहाद। इफ यू आर फाइटिंग अगेंस्ट जिहाद, उसको आइसोलेट मत करिए। मेरा आपसे ये विनम्र निवेदन है, इस पर भी सोच लीजिए। मैं खाली सोचने के लिए फ्लैग कर रहा हूँ। देन वेरियस जो लेजिस्लेशंस हैं उस पर सोचिए। अब जब तक 91 का एक्ट रहेगा, कैसे काशी मथुरा मुक्त हो जाएगा, मुझे ज़रा तरीका तो बता दीजिए कोई। हम लोग जुडिशरी को क्रिटिसाइज करते रहें कि साहब ये नहीं करते, वो नहीं करते। अरे जब कानूनी आपने ऐसे बना के राव साथ है, उसमें क्या क्या करेगा? एक पन्ने का कभी एक्ट देखा है दुनिया में? पढ़ा है आप में से? मेरे आपसे अनुरोध है, आप सब जाइए घर में लौट के शाम को कंप्यूटर से निकाल के 91 का एक्ट जरूर पढ़ लीजिए। उसको पढ़ के तब आपके खुश हो जाएगी साहब इस देश में कैसी गवर्नेंस सब चलती रहती है। ठीक है, तरक्की कर गए, इकोनॉमिक्स हो सकता है किसी को सूट करती है, मुझे नहीं सूट करती वो इकोनॉमिक्स। बट मैं कमिंग बैक टू द इकोनॉमिक्स पार्ट ऑफ मिस्टर सरदना सब्जेक्ट, आई विल हैव ए फंडामेंटल क्वेश्चन टू रेज। कोविड हुआ, लाखों मजदूर पैदल चल के यहाँ से नीचे पहुँच गए, तो कहाँ है हमारी इकोनॉमिक्स? कहाँ फेल कर रहे हैं हम लोग 75 साल में? ये सब चीज़ों पर भी हमें अपने आप में सोचना पड़ेगा। आप उतर के तो देखिए, यहाँ जो नोएडा में दिखाई देता है, मैं हेलीकॉप्टर से उत्तर प्रदेश के हर जिले में और कल लगभग हर ब्लॉक में गया हूँ, भारतवर्ष में 6600 ब्लॉक है, 826 उत्तर प्रदेश में, 826 में 300-400 में मैं खुद गया हूँ। आज भी 75 साल बाद आदमी आपको वहाँ बैठा मिलेगा जो पेड़ पे बैठा हुआ है, जिसने ट्रेन ही नहीं देखी 75 साल की आज़ादी के बाद भी। वो आदमी, जब आप मिर्ज़ापुर के किसी जगह पे गए हम लोग हेलीकॉप्टर से, वो अभी भी 4 औरतें पेड़ पे चढ़ी हुई थी कि अरे एक और आदमी आ गया, पता नहीं कहाँ से निकल गए। मेरा बैचमेट वहाँ पे जो आजकल कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी, वो चीफ सेक्रेटरी बॉर्डर पे था। मैंने कहा यार ऐसे भी लोग रह रहे हैं यहाँ पे। तो ज़मीनी हकीकत को हम भूल गए, हम ज़मीनी हकीकत को, हमारी जो इकोनॉमिक मॉडल को हम भूल गए। इकोनॉमिक्स का मेरा ये कहना है, मैंने खुद कहा है, मैंने खुद उसमें एक बार प्रेजेंटेशन भी बना के भेजा था, अंतिम बात कह रहा हूँ कि आपको रूरल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स बनाने पड़ेंगे, आपको गांव की तरफ उतरना पड़ेगा। आप सिर्फ 2 काम कर दीजिए, ब्लॉक लेवल पे जीएसटी आदि कर दीजिए, बिजली का रेट आधा कर दीजिए, अपना फोकस वहाँ बढ़ जाएगा। लेकिन बड़ा उद्योगपति क्यों चाहेगा गांव में विकास हो? चाहेगा ही नहीं कभी भी। उसका तो बम्बई कलकत्ता में नौकरी अच्छी चल रही है, तो क्यों चाहेगा? तो इस पर भी बहस होनी चाहिए। सो अंत में मैं I want to say that we wanted to thank to especially IHAR and especially Sudhir and all of people who have been involved in this conference. It was a great, जितना मैंने शायद 40 साल में नहीं सीखा अपने जीवन में हर पद पे काम करके, उतना मैंने 3 दिन में, कुछ घंटों में सीखा है। मैं सीख के जा रहा हूँ और मैं इस विश्वास के साथ जा रहा हूँ, जो मैं सीख के जा रहा हूँ। बहुत से अच्छे लोगों से यहाँ मिला, तमाम लोगों से मिला। यंग ऑफिसर अमित बैठे हैं जो ओएनजीसी में नौकरी करते हैं, इनको क्या ज़रूरत है सब करने की? ओएनजीसी में मज़े से काम कर रहे हैं, घर में बैठ के अपना बीवी से और डांट खाते होंगे, पता नहीं क्या क्या चक्कर में पड़े वो। 24 घंटे डॉक्टर गंगोपाध्याय भी खा रहे हैं खूब डांट आजकल। तो इसलिए सबको, और इस लास्ट में आपसे कह रहा हूँ कि इस पूरे मूवमेंट को अगर बनाना है, इसको प्लीज़ एकेडमिक एक्सरसाइज मत रखिए, एकेडमिक एक्सरसाइज मत रखिए, किताबों में मत रखिए, पेपर में मत रखिए, इसको आंदोलन बनाइए। भारतवर्ष का आज सो कॉल्ड हमें राजनीतिक आज़ादी मिली, लेकिन अभी भी हमें सांस्कृतिक और आर्थिक आज़ादी नहीं मिली है। अगर इस देश को दुरुस्त करना है, आप सबको अलग अलग निकलना पड़ेगा, मशाल हाथ में लेके उसकी व्यवस्था खोजिए। शाह साहब, आपसे मैंने यही रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि उसकी व्यवस्था खोजिए कि ब्लॉक तहसील में और गांव-गांव में आप किस तरह से अपनी मशाल को और ज्ञान को पहुंचाएंगे, जो बहुत सिंपल है। आप लोग आज की तारीख में इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी, ये दुनिया भर के मीडियम्स अवेलेबल हैं, उन सब के माध्यम से अपनी चीज़ को धरती पर उतारिए, एक जगह संकलित कर लीजिए, फिर धरती पर उतारिए कंज्यूमेबल फॉर्मेट पे। श्रुति कल्चर, देखिए हमारे वेद मुनि जो हैं वो श्रुति करते थे, हर चीज़ सुन के करते थे काम। श्रुति कल्चर से काम करिए और श्रुति में इन्वॉल्व कर दीजिए। तो आई एम एक्सट्रीमली ग्रेटफुल फॉर मिस्टर सरदना टू मॉडरेट दिस, and I'm sorry if he's feeling offensive on any of my remark, but मैं अपने को ही बुरा कह रहा हूँ शुरुआत में, तो आपके लिए अगर थोड़ा बहुत बुरा बोल दूँ तो कोई बुरी बात नहीं है। मैं अपने लिए अगर सब शुरुआत में मैंने अपने लिए बुरा बोल दिया, तो मैं मतलब अपने बिरादरी के लिए बुरा बोल दिया, थोड़ा सा जो मैंने महसूस किया अपने बिरादरी के बारे में, तो उसके लिए बुरा बोल दिया। तो और ये तो उसके लिए मैं आपके लिए माफ़ी चाहूँगा अगर किसी को कोई ऑफेंस हुआ हो, बट मुझे बड़ी खुशी है कि आप सब लोगों ने हम लोग को बुलाया। और मैं फिर से कहूँगा कि मैं अब इसमें लग गया हूँ, मेरी आदत है, मैं अपने कार्डर में नो नो, हमारा कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी भी कहता है दीपक अगर तुम किसी चीज़ में लग जाओगे ठोक के मानोगे। मैं आपसे वायदा कर रहा हूँ, लग गया हूँ तो 3-4 महीने में कुछ नतीजा दिखाऊंगा, भारतवर्ष में आपको खुद दिखाई देगी, कुछ ना कुछ चीज़ें दिखाई देंगी।
Thank you, Deepak ji. I think, friends, in last almost hour plus, we had a lot of thoughts. Before I wind up, I want to share one small incident with you. You know, when I passed out from IIM Ahmedabad, I had a privilege to go to IS Academy, Missouri, as a faculty to discuss WTO and its different agreements and impact on India. So I was a regular faculty there. And why I'm saying this is very important for you to look at. In the dinner time, I was sitting with a couple of chief secretaries were there when we were discussing WTO. So on a lighter game, 1947, when India got independence, all the countries around the world, they went to the God. This is extremely unfair that a country which is such rich in resources, brilliant people, one of the most diversified agroclimatic condition, with all possible great culture, history, tradition, you know, sharp people, everything now suddenly becoming independent, how we will face them? God looked into their, I'm also a lawyer, no? So I can also look. God considered the prayer. He says, yeah, this is true, that India is a land of opportunity, full of resources, brilliant people, agroclimatic conditions, natural resources, mines, minerals. You can think of it. But now decision is made that India has to become independent. The world was shouting that it is extremely unfair how we will compete and survive against India. So God was very concerned, yes, this is unfair, that how a country can be so rich, so resourceful, so competent. What will happen to others? So after a pause, God said, I have a solution for you now. See, I cannot deny the independence of India, but to take care of your problems, I will give India, government of India. Thank you very much.
Especially mentioned about Sudhir, one person at this forum, which I've seen him. I've never seen a more quieter organizer. So all cheers to him, and thank you. Very obviously from this.
I'll just take a couple of minutes before we finally close and this session, and I'm here to express my gratitude to all of you, to all of the brilliant panelists, having given us their insight not only of their formal and informal education, but also bringing in their rich experience into telling us how we can transform Bharat, the cradle of civilization, to Bharat, the candle of civilization. And that's the hope with which we started this conference and went through many, many, many stages and are winding down to another last session. I did promise Sudhir ji that I will accompany him or be dragged out. So I will be leaving in a few minutes, and I will seek your pardon that I'm leaving before my guests are leaving, which is a violation of the tradition. So I will seek your pardon, I'll seek your forgiveness, but I will be back to see all of you again, hopefully in the near future. And Mary, without whom, of course, IHAR cannot function, she is the dynamo of the organization, will be here to wind up the proceedings and deliver a formal vote of thanks, etc. But thank you again. Very grateful to each one of you and to all of you, sirs, on the podium.